Hello everyone, welcome to Code Pravah. I hope you all will be doing very good. So today we are going to make a game in ReactJS, and that is memory game. I'm sure that it will be a lot of fun and learnings as well in this video. So let's get started. So let's directly jump into my VS Code where I have created one React project with the name of memory game. This is very minimal. I have done some cleanup and it's only printing hello world as you can see it here. So first thing first, I'll create one folder with the name of components, and I'll create one component with the name of memory game, and I'll initialize this component with just a text of memory game. And I'll be simply replacing this h1 tag, and I'm going to import that memory game component which we just created, and I'll be rendering it here directly into our app.js, and it's rendering. Now I'll move to my memory game component. And inside this div, I'm going to remove this text and I'm going to create one h1 tag and I'll give a text of memory game. Then I'm going to create one div with the class name of game. And inside this div, I'm going to create another div with the class name of cards. Now, inside this cards div, I want to render few cards. So I'm going to create one more component with the name of card. And I'll be simply creating one card component. And I will import it right over here with the name of card and I'll render it into this div. So it's rendering properly. So now let's work on this card component. So I'm going to create a div with the class name of card, and inside this div, I'm going to create one paragraph with the text of card. This is just for now. We are going to replace it very soon. So let's come back into this memory game component and I'm going to render this card component multiple times. For now, let's work on the CSS part, and I'm writing some global CSS, that is I want padding and margin to be 0, and of course the box sizing to be border box. And then for body, I'm going to set a background color of a little bit bluish color, and I'm going to choose some font family from here itself. Let's choose this one. Yeah, this is fine for me. Now I want a margin of 2 rem from each side, and then for h1 tag, which is rendering this memory game, I want to change the color. So I'm going to assign it some darker blue color. Yep, it's fine for me. Then if I go back to my memory component, there is a game div and there is a cards div. So let's work on this game div first. This card is sticking into this h1 tag. So I can easily say that I need some top margin. So I'll say 15 pixel. Okay. Then I want height of, let's say 90 VH. And I want the display to be flex, and I want all the contents to be placed into the center. Then we have to work on the cards div. So I'll say margin auto, and I want the display type of grid, and I want to define a template for the column wise grid. So I want to repeat it 4 times, and let's say the width of 150 pixels. And I want the gap between these grids. So let's say 20 pixels for now. And I want to place all the content into the center. Then inside this div, we are rendering this card component, and this card component is having a class of card. So I am going to write CSS for this card component. I want to display my cards of height of 200 pixels and width of 150 pixels. However, it's not visible for me. So I'm going to define a border here, and let's say I want a thick border because as we know, the cards have a thick white color of border. So I'll say 8 pixel of thick border and the color of, let's say, white for now. To give it a more realistic view, I'm going to assign some border radius and let's say 10 pixels. This is fine. I want the contents to be coming into center. So we can easily achieve it by display flex and align items to center and justify content to center. Because these cards will be clickable, so I want to put my cursor of the type of pointer. I think we are good for now. Let's work on this memory game. So I'm going to simply import useState hook from the React library. Also, we will need useEffect, so I'm going to import it right away. So for the state, I'm going to define one state and I'll say it cards data. And of course, we will need a setter function to set the state of this cards data. So I'll say set cards data. And initially it is going to be an empty array. Now, because it's a memory game and it's totally up to us that what we want to showcase into each card, you can show any emoji, any text, any number, or any image of your choice. But for now, I have found something special, that is Pokédex. If you go to Pokédex, you will find that it is a collection of Pokemons. So I have taken the data from here. I'll show you how I am doing. So I'm going to create one helper directory here, and inside this helper directory, I'm going to create one file with the name of Pokemons.js. Now, inside this file, if you see, I have created one array of objects, and each object represents a Pokemon with the name and image URL. So if I just copy this image and open it here, so you would see that I'm getting one image. Similarly, there are lots of images I have placed it for now. You can just copy it, or you can use images of your own choice. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to write a function with the name of getPokemons, which receives a parameter of count, which is optional. If you don't give it any value, by default it will be 2. And what this function will do, it will return the data which we will use to display the card. So because it's a memory game, so there will be at least 2 pairs. So let's say we want to store our result into a result variable, and then I'm going to run a loop, count number of times, and for each item, I'm going to push each Pokemon data 2 times into this res array. And I want to push the object with the keys as name. So the names I can get from the Pokemon's array, and I can access the name with this index, and the key is name itself. And then I need image. So I'll say Pokemons, and again, I can access the current Pokemon with the index I, and I need image. And at last, I want to show the status. And let's say it's empty string for now. The status variable I am using to showcase if the card is matching or it's not matching, or if you have flipped the card. So these kinds of status we will be handling from this field. And as I told you, we need to push this data 2 times to make a pair. So I'll simply copy and paste it again. And now I'll simply return this res variable from this function. And now we will simply export this function getPokemons from this file. And then I'll go to my memory game component, and I'm going to import that getPokemons function, and I'll be using useEffect hook here. And for now, let's define a constant variable with the name of max cards, and I want to display 8 pairs of cards. It means there will be 16 cards in total. This useEffect hook will be taking a dependency array of max card, which is not going to change. It's constant for now, but you can easily define this as a state, and you can provide a freedom to user to choose the size of these cards. Like if the user want a 4 pair of cards, you can easily do that. But for now, let's go with 8. And here simply I'm going to use setCardsData function, and I want to fill the data from getPokemons function. And for now, I'm going to pass max cards here. So this cards data state will be containing all the informations related to the Pokemons. So I'll remove this static card displaying here, and I'll be looping on the cards data state with the use of map function. And let's say each element is card data, and I can also access the index for each card element. And I will be rendering card for each card data. Now you can see it is a 4x4 card which is displaying here. If I change it to, let's say 4, so it's 4x2, it means there are 4 pairs of card, but I'll be going with 8 for now, and it's working properly for me. Now I have to work on this card component, which is going to receive a card data prop from its parent. So I'll be simply passing it here, that is card data, and the value is of course card data, and we don't want any warning, so that's why I'll be assigning index as a key. Now let's work on this card component, and I'll be simply removing this, and I'm going to use this image tag here because I want to display the images of Pokemons, which I can access through card data dot image. Oh my god, you can see all the images are rendering. It's looking like something else, but this is not the way we want. Let's say for now, alternative tag, we want this Pokemon image. And let's work on this image tag because it's not looking the way we want it. So I'll be simply going here into my CSS file, and I'll say card and then image. I'm going to select, I want height and width of 130 pixels. Now it's looking fine for me. There is no any cluttering of images happening, but there's one problem. All the pairs are coming together as we defined in this Pokemons.js file. I don't want like this because it's very easy to guess. I want all the images to be distributed randomly. So that I can simply achieve because result is an array. So we are going to use sort function here. So as you know, in JavaScript, sort can accept a callback, and based on the result of that callback, it performs the sorting. It depends upon negative and positive values. So what we can do, we can use a math.random function here, which will give me a value from 0 to 1, and I'll simply subtract 0.5 from here. So the overall return value will be sometime negative and sometime positive, and it will be very random. So if I save this file and refresh my page, you can see it is spreading very randomly. You cannot predict where it was last time. So it's fine for me right now. I can say it is random. In the next step, I want to flip all the cards once the user has seen all the cards, because user has to memorize all the positions and the images, and user has to pick all the positions of the pairs. And at the same time, I want a realistic flipping kind of animation. So that's why I'll use rotating from the y-axis, which will be giving a real time of flip effect. So I can simply say that I want to use this transform property, and I want to rotate my card from y-axis, and I want to rotate it by 180 degree. And then I want to apply some animation. I don't want it to be flipping very quickly. So I'll say, let's wait for 3 seconds, and the name of animation, I'll say flip card, and I want this animation to be linear. Now let's define the keyframes for this flip card animation. So at 0%, I want to rotate the card by 0 degree, and at the 100%, I want to rotate this card by 180 degree. So as you can see, it's rotating, but at the same time, I don't want it to be flipped immediately. I want to give some time to user to memorize all the images and their positions. So what I can do, up to 70% of time, I want it to be not rotating. So what will happen now? Up to 70% of 3 seconds, the image is not going to rotate. So approximately in last 1 second, the image will be flipped. But at the same time, if the image is being flipped, I want the images to be hidden. So we have to work on this image component. So initially, I want the visibility for this image to be hidden. I don't want it to show user. So I'm going to add one animation here, and which is again going to work for 3 seconds. And this time I'm going to say hide image and hide it linear. So again, we have to write a keyframe for this hide image animation, where I'm going to say at 0%, that is initially make the visibility of visible, because initially I want the user to see it and then it should be vanish. And around 85%, I want the visibility to be hidden. So now if I reload this page, you can see everything is working, and now the card is flipping and the images are gone. So this is the behavior we were looking for. And for now, I'm going to assign some random background color to each card. Later we are going to replace and we will make it very realistic. But for now, let's put a random background color, and let's go back to our memory game component. So in the next step, we have to work on flipping of these cards. So whenever I click on any of the card, it should be flipped, and it should wait until I flip another card to check if it is same or not. So I'm going to simply create one function with the name of onCardFlip, and this is going to receive an ID, the ID for that card. So here there can be two possibilities, that is it the first card I am flipping, or this is the second pair which I am looking for. It means I have already flipped one card and I am flipping another card to make it as a pair. So I have to track that. So in order to do that, I'm going to create one more state, and I'm going to name it as a flip card, and initially it is going to be -1. So this is going to basically store the card which has been flipped. If there is no card flipped, I'll say this is the first card I'm going to flip. So I can simply do it here. So if this flipped card state is storing the value as -1, it means this is the first time I'm going to flip some card. And if the flip card is having some value, I'll say I'm looking for pair. Let's bind this function to this card component. So I'm going to simply pass this function into this card component, and I'll go to my card component and I'll receive this onCardFlip function as a prop. One more thing I would like to do, because I have index, so I'm going to treat this index as an ID for the current rendering. So I'll be passing this index as a ID, as property to this card, and let's receive this ID into this card component. And I'm going to simply call this onCardFlip function whenever the onClick event is happening on this particular div, that is card. So let's go back to this memory game component and let's work on this onCardFlip function. So whenever the flip card is negative, it means this is our first card. So what I'll do, I'll set the flipped card as this current card, which will be setting the ID. And then I'll go into my cards data And remember, the ID represents the index of each card. So I can access the particular card which has been clicked with this ID. And remember, we had initiated one property with the name of status. It was empty string. So I will now set it to flipped. It means we have flipped this card. And in the case where flipped card is already there, it means the second card I am flipping. So it will compare both the cards if they are same or not. So what I can do, I can create one more function with the name of check for match. And this will receive one property, that is current card ID, which will be basically the second card. And I'm going to call that function from here. So I'll call it check for match, and I'm going to pass the ID from here. Now we have two IDs, the current ID, and for the first card which we flipped earlier, it will be into this flipped card state. So what I can do, I can apply one if condition here. Let me just close this bar so we can get more width to write the code. So I'll say if cards data. So let's try to access the current card, which we can access via current card ID, and we will check via the name, because as you can see this array, we have assigned some name to each card. So if the current card is having the same name as the previous card which was flipped and which is stored into this flipped card state, it means we can say that we have found a pair. And if it is not the case, we'll say not matching. So if someone finds a pair, what we are going to do, so we will again use that status variable and we'll set the value. So I'll say cards data. And because both are matching, so we need to set that property for both of the cards. So I'll say current card ID dot status, and I'll simply say match. And similarly for the previously flipped card which is stored into this flipped card, and I'll say status to be match. And in the case where the cards are not matching, I want to flip them back with some error type of notification, which we will do in later. So I'll say this time it will be a mismatch. Now in the both of the cases, because we have found a pair or we have not found a pair, I will free my flipped card state and I'll say set flipped card state to -1. So we can start again for finding a pair. Now, based on this status, I want to set some class on my card component. So there can be three states. One, I have flipped the card, so we can call it as a flip, and then both cards are matching, then it can be a state of match. And if both cards are not matching, it can be unmatched state or mismatched state. So I'm going to simply remove this card class from this div. So I'm going to use dynamic class here. So I'm using backtick, and because I will receive the card data dot status, and if it is existing, it means there is some status, either it can be flip, match or mismatch. I want to add one class of flipped. Similarly, I want to add one more class, and this class will be same as the status. It can be match or it can be mismatch. One more thing I would like to do, I want to restrict myself on clicking on the same card again and again. So in order to do that, I can simply say that if there is no status on the card, only then make it clickable. Otherwise, what will happen? If someone is clicking on the same card twice, it will call it as a match, but this is not the scenario. So we can simply handle it via this. Let's write some CSS and let's see if the flip thing is working for us or not. So I'll simply go here, and because our flipped class is being appended into the card class, so I can simply say here that I want a rotation, because last time we rotated it 180 degree. So this time I'm going to rotate it to 0, because at the same time we are hiding our images too. So what I'm going to do, so I'll make its visibility to be visible because it has been flipped. So I can simply say that card which is having this flipped class, so its image should be visible. So if I try this, let it flip first. So all cards are hidden. And if I click on this, you can see it is displaying for me, but it is not happening very smoothly. It means the flip effect is not working, and we can simply add a transition here. And after that, it should start working. Let's give it a try. So I can say transition, I want to apply on transform property. And let's say I want to apply it for 0.5 seconds. So let the cards get hidden, and then if I click on this, you can see it's flipping. At the same time, Because these two images are not matching, I want to show some indication that these are not the correct matches. And if they are the correct matches, I again want to show something. So let's say into the card, if a match class is being appended, whatever we are appending through the status. So in that case, I want to set my background of, let's say, green color, a lighter green maybe. And in the case where the card is having mismatch, because this is again a state and which is converting into class, I want to set my background to a red color. So let me change my background color for the card and let's keep it somewhere yellow. And if I refresh this, you can see it's working and it has been hidden now. And if I click on this, you can see it has been flipped. And now if I click somewhere, if the pair will be correct, it will be green, but this pair is not correct. That's why it is red. Let's try for the matching also. So this and this are matching. So you can see, so they both are green. So there is one problem. If I found a pair which is not matching, they should definitely flip back again. So how can I achieve that? I'll go to my memory game component, and here where the cards are not matching, I'm going to set a timeout because I want the user to see it at least for 1 second that he has picked some wrong or mismatched card, and then he has seen it for 1 second. I want to flip them back. So I'll simply copy these two lines and I want to set the status to be empty. Now in this case, both flipped and match or mismatch, all the classes will be removed and the card will be flipped back as a normal card. Now in all the cases, we are not setting the card's data state. So what I'll do, so I'll be simply setting the card's data and I'm going to use spread operator and into the square bracket because I want a new array to be set up into the state. So the re-rendering will be happening and I'll simply copy this and paste it here as well because we are changing into the cards. And if I reload the page, you can see all the changes are rendering. And if I flip some card and you see there was a mismatch and it flipped back. Now if I refresh the page and I remember that this one and this one are matching, you can see it's not flipping back. But at the same time, if I'm clicking some wrong pair, it is definitely flipping back. And this was the right pair, that's why it did not flip back. And again, this was the wrong pair, it flipped back. So this is how our memory game working. I want to make some more cosmetic changes. So inside my public directory, I have added one image which we can use as a back face for a card. So I'm going to my CSS file and I'll go directly to my card and I'll remove this background color from here. And I'm going to add a background and I'll use URL property here. And I know my background is sitting into this public folder with the name of Pokemon-card.png. And you can see it's rendering, but it's not rendering properly because the image is very big as compared to the card size. So I'll use background sizing here and I'll say cover it. So you can see it's working, but if I refresh the page, you can see this background is coming in all the images, which I don't want. I want it to apply only on the back side of the card. So whenever the card is flipped, only then this background should be visible. So I'll go to my flip card keyframe and here I'm going to set one background. So you can see it's a linear gradient of some color. You can give it of your choice. And at the same time, I want this background to be applied, which is the Pokemon, whenever card is flipping after 70%. So you can see it's working fine. But there's one problem. If I flip some card, the background is changing back to this background. So what I can do, I can simply copy this background. And whenever I'm applying this flipped class, I can simply add that linear gradient here. So if I just reload this page and you can see all the cards has been flipped, and if I click to flip this, you can see the background is as we wanted. In the case of match, it's green and it's working properly, and in the case of mismatch, it's rotating back or flipping back to its normal position. And I think we are done with our project. What you can do into the next step. So into the next step, you can add a scoreboard here, which will display the score. That is how many attempts did it take to get all the guesses. And also you can show one input or drop down kind of thing where a user can select the choice of their memory game size. If they want 8 pairs, show them 16 cards. If they want 4, show them 8 cards. And if you want to increase, definitely you can do that. And similarly, if you want to replace all these images and you want to add it by yourself, some emoji or something else, you can definitely do that. And I'll say you should definitely do it because it will give you a good learning. I hope you enjoyed in this video and had a good learning with this Code Pravah video. If you really learned something new from this video, please give this video a like, share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe Code Pravah.